Hey everyone, I'm Cherrybong, and this is my first ever video as a PokeTuber. I am fairly active in the Ruins of Alph community, where you play many old-gen games and tournaments. Um, Although I do have very little experience with Sun and Moon and newer gens, today I just want to focus on the generation that I specialize in. And in particular, I'm going to show a video, I'm going to upload a video rather, focusing on the Ruins of Alph live tournaments. In particular, this is going to be an analysis of a match that I played. And this is actually a really interesting event that they have here. So I recommend you guys check it out on the Smogon forums in the Ruins of Alph threads. Every week, what Ruins of Alph Room does is that they organize these tournaments, and so each tournament will have one format going on, or one generation. All of the 5 classics, so red, blue, yellow, gold, silver, crystal, advance, DPP, and black and white. It's just a best of 1, but as far as GSC is concerned, there are some pretty good names here. So my Smogon account is Makususu. They misspelled it here, but on Showdown and Smog Tours, I just use Cherrybong with an O, and I was really excited to partake in this experience because it's a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to watch later games and things. So, as a GSC player myself, I really like to use aggressive teams. So, I wasn't finding very much consistency with the teams I had been experimenting with in the past weeks, so I just decided to go with something more classic. And what better example than to use one of Lavos's teams with none other than Jinx. This was an SPL team he used in Smogon Premier League 9, and it's highly aggressive, with a Zapdos lead, spikes, and explosion in Cloyster, a Body Slam Steelix to fish for paralysis, because Body Slam has a 30% chance of paralyzing opponents, and Jinx with Lovely Kiss to put opponents to sleep, substitute in case you are predicting them to switch into something with the move Sleep Talk, thus giving yourself another chance to save your Lovely Kiss for another turn, for instance, and then 2 extremely powerful special moves that are rarely resisted by other mons, besides, per se, I don't know, Starmie. Here is a Body Slam, Earthquake, Curse, Rest Snorlax, as opposed to using Double Edge, which is much stronger and better for kills. Body Slam, again, is used as support for the rest of the team. For example, Gengar, if it were an explosion set, would have the potential, but even with Destiny Bond, to kill Raikou. Jinx would definitely be aided in fighting the very powerful electric legendaries. And Jinx is already very strong on switch-ins or revenge killing. It can kill. It's pretty consistent against Zapdos if Zapdos is in a really shitty situation. Zapdos doesn't like to switch in on Jinx, as opposed to Raikou, which is a more consistent answer when you don't have something like Starmie. But even then, Lovely Kiss is devastating. Psychic can 2-hit KO Cloyster, and Ice Beam can 2-hit KO Exeggutor, so that's really, really, really good. This team revolves around Jinx steamrolling. So, I'd never participated in this live tournament before, but yesterday, at around midnight-ish, I entered and I was a little bit startled because I was afraid I wasn't going to get to play, because I thought that on Smog Tours you needed an alt that was the same as your account on Smogon to become a voice. So I was like writing to 50 different people. Anyways, it doesn't matter. There's no way at justifying what you will see in the very first turn for any player of any level, like, because the lead is none other than Umbreon, not a very typical lead, and I just went for a Thunder. You might be able to expect what happens next. Mean look. So, we did not start very well. Not at all. And I was prepared for the worst at this point. I mean, I was getting ready for the worst to come. In Generation 2, when you use Mean Look and Baton Pass, that means that you have no ability of switching your Pokemon out, and you are forced to stick in with Zapdos versus whatever it is they will switch into. So you're forced to play a 1v1 against your opponent's Pokemon of choice, and that can threaten yours. Raikou being the best answer in certain situations against Zapdos, and forcing me to play these horrible games of chance, which seem to be going in my favor, at least for the beginning, but then not really. So I get a paralysis, but my Thunder isn't even as strong as his T-Bolt, and that's because Zapdos doesn't resist electric moves, and that's the whole advantage to using Raikou over Zapdos. The resistance to electrics. So DrCaetano uses Rest, and I don't see him using Sleep Talk. So I think that at this point this could be a Roar Raikou set. And he's just absorbing the hits. He can rest off any condition, so my only hope is really of getting him to be fully paralyzed and missing a turn, and then maybe even critting. There's a lot that I have to do in order to hope to kill this thing. But if we just move on here, we see how he reveals his third move being Crunch. And at this point, I had lost hope. I knew I was fighting an uphill battle, and I was going to end up in a situation where I would have 5 Mons against his 6 very healthy ones, and I didn't even know his team yet, and I made such a crucial mistake. Not an acceptable mistake for someone who's been playing for 2 years. Definitely not for anyone higher up either, and probably something you want to avoid. Piece of advice: I did have a solution to this problem, and I chose not to use that solution. Big mistake. In Generation 2, it's important to avoid Umbreon sets, Misdreavus sets, or even just something like Snorlax using Curse and setting up on you. So the answer to these is usually using Steelix. Steelix has Roar. Other Mons also have Roar, Tyranitar. Some Zapdos sets have Whirlwind, but the usual bread and butter Zapdos set is Rest Talk, as I have shown already. Those are my 4 moves. So the reason why he chose to start using Crunch is to see if he can get a chance at lowering my special defense. I was a little bit... I wasn't expecting him to have Crunch if he had any move, but it'll reveal soon that... So the Spadef drop is crucial because Thunderbolt now 2-hit KOs. But luckily enough, I managed to get a paralysis. His Raikou uses rest though, and washes and brushes it off. It's already the second paralysis I get, and it amounted to nothing. To make matters worse, I miss my last chance at killing him. He gets a paralysis, I'm fully paralyzed, and I die. And he is at 100%. So far it's been 24 turns and he has not lost any footing, all because of one crucial mistake. Now I have no powerful special attacker outside of Jinx, so I really need to put it in work. I switch into Snorlax as opposed to Steelix to find out that he has Reflect, and it is not a phasing Raikou, and it is not a Rest Talk Raikou either. I'm fishing for paralysis even though I have Curse and Earthquake. Really, one could argue, well, why didn't you just start setting up with Snorlax? I mean, that could have been a good idea, but I was so terrified now of this Umbreon, which I had underestimated. It's generally something I don't find consistency with when I use it, but, you know, that just goes to show that there's a reason why this mon is in OU. So, considering it doesn't have any dark moves, I bring in my Gengar with Dynamic Punch. I also tried to fish in the Confuse Ray, which I had already seen it use, I think. No, I've seen it use it just now. So I didn't want to suffer any sort of condition from this Umbreon here. I didn't want Umbreon to damage my Jinx. So I just decided to go in for the aggressive move. If Gengar was confused, I'd expect Umbreon not to go for another confusion move, and I'd bring in Jinx. So it uses Moonlight to recover. It's pretty good, but I use Substitute to block his Confuse Ray. Now I've gained a lot of footing, and I put his mon to sleep, which I thought would have been very good, because, I mean, at the very least, he might have switched into something else, but alas, this won't prove as beneficial as it seems. So I bring in Snorlax now, because now it would be a good chance either to set up or start seeing if things can happen. But what do I find? Another reason to have a phaser, Misdreavus, with the same notion in mind, but a slightly different moveset. It does have Mean Look, and it's able to resist. I mean, it doesn't take normal damage, so this can block pure mono Snorlaxes and potentially trap them, use Perish Song, protect, and then switch to another Pokemon on the last turn, thus killing the mon without even touching it. So Misdreavus manages to pull off Perish Song on the first turn, as opposed to using Mean Look. This gains you some advantage because that means you have one less turn to worry about. This is really a hacksy Pokemon. It could use Confuse Ray the next turn, making me hit myself on the very turn in which I actually have the opportunity to use Roar, then Protect for another turn or use Mean Look. So it's very dangerous. I used Misdreavus for a bit myself, but I managed to roar it out. So what happens is Mean Look is cancelled when you use a phasing move like Roar or Whirlwind, so that's pretty good. Also, if you kill Misdreavus, you don't have to. You're not trapped anymore, so that's good as well. I roared Umbreon out, and I decide to bring in Snorlax once again. He thought that it was a good idea to bring in Executor, and admittedly it is, because this really screws up my team. I stay in with Snorlax because I decided at this point that his Executor, I had enough Mons that could actually answer it, even without Zapdos, but I really couldn't afford to have Steelix put to sleep, considering these two devastating ones, these trappers. So I switch in to Jinx, predicting the Psychic, and I start using Ice Beam, and I get a Lucky Freeze. So at this point, it almost would look like I have the advantage, but I even managed to get a crit on his powerful Snorlax. But I wasn't going to stay in, so I brought in Steelix. He uses Earthquake, so it's likely to be a mixed Lax or a 2-move Curse Snorlax with Rest. So I decide to bring in Cloyster, because if there's going to be a moment I can bring in Spikes, it's probably better sooner than never. And he brings in his Executor. So my Snorlax is asleep, so he can't put me to sleep. So I just go ahead with Spikes. He deals a whopping amount of damage. But I don't feel safe with one Ghost lying around. I think that he might have something that could block or absorb the explosion. And I don't even know what his last Pokemon is anyways. So I bring in Gengar, expecting him to use, well, to stay in, but to use Giga Drain. I wasn't sure what I was doing here, honestly. I'm trying to recover so many lost turns or lost, moves with the potential of also absorbing an explosion and everything. So I switch in Gengar, and he switches into Gengar as well. So I was kind of confused to see 2 Ghosts and an Umbreon and no Phaser on this team. I was like, what the heck am I dealing with right now? So I have no clue as to what to do at this point. I just switch into Snorlax, trying to burn some turns because his special moves. Snorlax was, albeit asleep, was quite healthy, so an explosion would not have been enough to kill Snorlax. Gengar's explosion is actually kind of weak. It fails to OHKO Raikou without a minimal amount of chip damage. So he reveals the move Destiny Bond, expecting me to use Earthquake, but I wanted to use Roar in order to turn the situation into my favor, perhaps switching in on something, shuffling, and inflicting Spikes damage on Pokemon that are switched in, like I did right here. I inflict 12 damage. What I can do now is consistently Roar until my opponent is forced to change Pokemon, but he stays in with Executor, and I use Body Slam, and I get a Lucky Paralysis, which will do me a lot of help. So I switch to Gengar, and here I go for an Ice Punch, hoping maybe that he'd die or get fully paralyzed. So he didn't even need to explode, and now he's eliminated my Ghost. I haven't been playing very well, but here is where Jinx comes in and I think this is a good showcase of what Jinx can really do. So I sub. It means he can't use Confuse Ray on me. I use Psychic, not expecting him to switch into Umbreon, because that would just mean I can start using Ice Beams. So I hit it with Psychic, maybe hoping for a Spadef drop in case he wants to switch into Snorlax or something like that. But he goes for a Protect, trying to recover or protect itself from something. I don't know. And it uses Perish Song. So sadly, Substitute does not block Perish Song, so I have to make sure that I take care of Misdreavus as soon as possible. Jinx has 288 speed, so it's faster. It doesn't have any chance of trapping Jinx, so I still have a chance at killing this thing. But I have to be very, very careful because Caetano can actually try and use Protect, but he doesn't do that. So what people fail to understand is that Protect doesn't automatically fail when you use it 2 times in a row. As a matter of fact, there is a very high chance in Generation 2 that the second time doesn't fail. It's a 50% chance, as opposed to later generations where it becomes, I think, 30%? Okay, don't quote me on that. In any case, it's not a bad idea to try that out, but he wants to keep it alive and healthy, which is understandable. And for some reason, I go for the Psychic here again. Ice Beam might have been a little bit better. I had a sub up, but okay, you know, there's only so much you can do and take into account. So I bring Cloyster in because I want to put pressure, but he predicts and uses Gengar. It was my last turn for Perish Song, so I had to switch into something. He predicts my doubling into Steelix and reveals, sadly, Fire Punch, which is not common at all. I really didn't. Like, you don't even use Fire Punch to take care of Fortress because Fortress kind of sucks. Or Fire Punch to take care of Exeggutor or maybe Jinx, but the thing is, Fire Punch, when I saw it happen, I understood that that was completely meant for my Steelix, and now I have a Steel Pokemon that is likely going to die, and I have to make a decision. So I explode because I think he's not going to switch in. I don't know. I don't know what I'm thinking. So I think the situation can be beneficial for me, but there it is. He has Earthquake and Rest and Mint Berry Snorlax. I should have seen that coming since he didn't recover with leftovers, but it kind of put me off. So now I have to hope to kill something, but his Umbreon wakes up on turn 2. Manages to use Confuse Ray. I hit myself. It uses Baton Pass just to pivot into Misdreavus and not take any potential damage. And there. It concludes with Perish Song on the last Mon, which is something I really love to do when I have Misdreavus. It's sort of like an ultimatum. I would have taken chances in any other situation, but here I wasn't really offered that many opportunities. Jinx put in a lot of work, don't get me wrong. I did actually manage to gain a lot of footing thanks to it, but I made very poor decisions in terms of Gengar and Cloyster and Steelix. So props to DrCaetano, who ended up also taking a bunch of big names down later, so at least he didn't make me feel too bad about losing. I was kind of happy about the whole match. Like, I never played in a tournament, in the same tournaments as people like Earthworm, except for one time. But it was just a bunch of inexperienced players. These live tours are really a lot of fun. They're unofficial live tours. They serve the purpose also for qualifying for the GSC OU Championship, so it's pretty legit, and I had a lot of fun. One further thing I'd like to add about the team used here is that later when I asked DrCaetano93 that this team was recommended to him. It's sort of a fun team that he told me that was given to him by Century Express, a very, very good player who is basically on the top of the GSC ladder and has been for a long time. And yeah, this is really interesting. If any of you have any input you'd like to provide for this video, or even advice on how to not suck at this game, you can leave it in the comments or anything. I hope to make further analysis soon. Also, if you guys wish, it's a good idea for anyone that's interested in the Generation 2 metagame to try out the Ruins of Alph room in Pokemon Showdown, and we also have our own Discord, which is, it's kind of like Smogon, Ruins of Alph. So, thanks a lot.